Chaos is upon us right now. What I'm going to show you today is the truth, and the truth is something that people are seeking. That's why this channel has become more and more popular. That's why channels are interviewing me, not because it's me, but because I've done and researched the truth, and then I bring it out there. It's the information that people are seeking. So here we go, right into it today, and I want to note right off the bat, when are they going to admit that the US has entered another recession? Let's forget about depression for now. Let's just try and get them to admit that we're in a recession right here. And of course, it's not just the US, but let's just focus on that for a moment. Bad to worse, US economy shrank more than expected in Q1. Let's go into the article. And it's talking about how they didn't think that they would contract like this, but hey, it did. And they're a 2.9% annual rate. That's the dramatic decline. It went from basically no growth, and then all of a sudden now they're at minus 3% for their growth. That is the real situation. They are shrinking. The economy is shrinking fast. Now, this doesn't even include the fact that there's inflation. So when you factor that in, it's actually significantly more negative than what they're proposing. But just going with their numbers, because that's how people like to try and pigeonhole everything that we do. Let's go with the numbers that they provide us, and let's beat them and let's defeat them with their own numbers. We're talking about negative growth in an economy that is basically printing at an extremely high rate all around the world. Countries and central banks are printing to the bottom. There's a race right down to the bottom, and they are winning that race right now in the US. That's for sure. So I'm going to go on. You could read the article if you want, but you know where I'm getting with that. I'm going to define right here, just picked up Investopedia, definition of a recession, and it's saying a significant decline in the activity across the economy lasting longer than a few months. It's been years, but let's just go with this for a moment. And basically they said that a technical indicator is 2 consecutive quarters of negative economic growth. Now, if you don't think that the US has endured 2 consecutive quarters of economic growth, I don't know where you're looking, because there has been no growth for such a long time, ever since they began the recession, using their own numbers. As far as I'm concerned, ever since the recession began, the financial crisis, there has been no growth. They have been printing their way to this growth. Companies still have not hired the same amount of employees they have prior to the recession. That's how you know that the economy is hurting. Only government has expanded throughout this time. That's the only thing. And it's always temporary workers that are getting the jobs. I'm going to try to go on quickly. You know how I like to rant. Americans are taking on debt at scary high rates. And just before I get into this, I just want to note, personal debt ratio hits a record high of 164%. This is in Canada. So it's not just a US problem, it is in Canada as well. It's all around the world. But let me go back to that for a second. What I'm talking about here is that you're trying to fuel, what they said in that previous article was basically that the economy is run and primarily generated by consumer spending. Well, look at here. Look at the Americans, look at the Canadians. They're just cash strapped right now, and they have gone into debt so significantly, there's no money for them to buy anything else. They have this glut of homes that they're just sitting there because of what they were doing. With the ninja loans, people were able to buy all kinds of real estate, and basically they didn't need any money. That's how you can continue to have that boom. The construction was booming. You need oil, you need the gasoline, everything that goes along with that. But right now we have a really bad situation because they can't even afford their own necessities because they're totally debt stricken. So that's what the reality of the situation is. But the mainstream media is not going to tell you that. And we have real negative growth taking place right now. The government is even admitting it. So let's go on. And right here, this is the only economic driver right now, and that is the printing press, the Federal Reserve, and all other central banks around the world printing into infinity. It will eventually hit infinity, or perhaps they'll have to stop it and before it gets there, and they will sort of reissue, revalue currencies. Who knows what they're planning on doing? They've done this many times before. It wouldn't be anything new. When you hear people talking about, oh, you're just a fear monger, or you're this or you're that, specifically, these people have not read history. There is a new currency approximately every 30 to 40 years, or some sort of currency system, the gold standard, Bretton Woods, all this sort of thing. So if you haven't read your history, I don't expect you to know, but you, as a Money GPS insider, as a Money GPS subscriber, you guys know. You know what's going on. So let me go ahead with this right here. I'm going to tell you that the Federal Reserve, the central banks, they're the only driver of the real economy right now. It is not working well because they have to print trillions upon trillions of dollars, and the only thing that gets better is a stock market that is slightly up from where it was about almost 15 years ago practically. And look at what it's gotten us. Nowhere. This is what I wrote in my book. And it is the solution. You want solutions, here it is. And I hope that the government would listen to these, but unfortunately they're not. And that is that in 1920, this is one of the themes in my book, the fact that 1920 was the solution to the Depression, which they didn't take, even though it happened just about a decade prior. So here they are. They did nothing. That is the solution. They did not intervene. They did not print money. They didn't do all these tactics that they did. In fact, what they did was what any Austrian economist would suggest, and that is slash government spending. They slashed it so significantly, it was down 65% in a year, and that generated such a boom in the economy. And all of these things, that other factors that I talk about right here, you can read this for yourself, but basically generated a boom. They got rid of their debt, of the national debt. They slashed the government spending. They did all of these things, and they were able to recoup in basically about 1 year's time. And they did so significantly. It worked, and that's what they need to do, not print money. Why? Because printing money, all that does is give money from the Federal Reserve or the central bank, wherever you are, and it gives that money to the banks. And then the banks take that money and they manipulate it. They create all sorts of games with it. For example, JP Morgan, I've heard estimates of up to $90 trillion under their control with all the derivatives. That's the real value of what they're talking about here, and they are able to collapse the entire world instantly if they want. The real solution is to get the government, to get the central banks out of our hair, and that would be such a big boost to the economy. I hope that you would want more of this type of information. If you do, I want you to get on the insiders. I want to thank all of the new subscribers on there. I'm sure a whole bunch of you are coming over from SGT Report, my latest interview with them. Thank you all. It's really good to hear from you guys on there. I like all the insiders to email me, please. That's good. Let's keep a correspondence going. That's how we defeat them. That's how we defeat tyranny. The insiders is at themoneygps.com at the bottom. You fill in your email address and you get occasional emails from me with short, concise information.